Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house, and in this video we are rounding out the Blade trilogy with Blade Trinity, and we can put this one to bed pretty quickly, I feel. Blade Trinity is a movie that is more concerned with setting the table for next week than serving you the meal you'd sat down at the table that evening to eat. It concerns Blade, sort of. He gets captured at the start of this movie, taken into FBI custody, where certain elements in the FBI are in the thrall of the vampires. You know, as we learnt in the first movie, the familiars are in all walks of life, a vast sort of daytime network working on behalf of the vampires. And it looks like all is over for our plucky half-human, half-vampire hero when some friends from an unknown and hitherto unmentioned source arrive to bust him out, and they are the ridiculously named Night Stalkers. They're essentially Ryan Reynolds cracking wise and Jessica Biel making MP3 playlists and shooting her bow and arrow. There's Patton Oswalt there as well, and there's a couple of other characters who you needn't really concern yourself with because they're essentially wiped out relatively early on, and Blade is left to fight with Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds, and I assume that they are the Trinity of the title. They never really play very well. There's no real charisma between any of them, even Reynolds and Jessica Biel. I know that Wesley Snipes was particularly unhappy on set for this movie, and whilst I don't condone some of the behaviour that's laid at his feet, you can completely understand why. His third Blade movie is being taken away from him under his feet. Plans are being put in place to extend the franchise beyond the character of Blade within his own movie, squeezing him out of the storyline. And so in the end, it doesn't work as a Blade movie because he's a guest star in his own movie. It doesn't work to expand the world out beyond what we've already seen. And as we've discussed, the world building in the first two Blade movies are already excellent. It's a world I am keen to return to and have fun in. So everything that's on screen more or less smacks of corporate positioning to build an IP rather than to tell a story. Absolutely everything about this story seems half-baked. The vampires once again want to try and become daywalkers, and they tried twice now to use Blade's blood to get their way. So instead of doing that, what they've done now is to track down the original vampire, the first vampire who's sort of gone to ground and has been sleeping for thousands of years, to resurrect him because he is able to also be a daywalker whilst being a full vampire. It doesn't explain how his descendants can't do that, but never mind, he can and they can't. And it turns out that their descendant is, well, it's Dracula. And if I had sort of one note to give to vampire franchises like this, don't bring Dracula into it. Don't use Dracula. I mean, it's easy. Don't use Dracula. Don't have Dracula in it. There was an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where Dracula appeared, and it was shit. I mean, it was played for laughs. This one they try and do, I guess it's the Blade version of Dracula Untold, the true origin of Dracula. Before Dracula, he was something else, and a warlord that cut a swathe through history. I mean, it's kind of cool. Nowadays they call him Drake, which is less cool. And this immortal, unkillable, unstoppable figurehead who is going to lead the vampire nation to victory doesn't do much. He has a bit of a race with Blade, and he throws a baby at Blade. He kills the Night Stalkers, all bar a child to use as bait for them to come to him. Although I'm sure they would have come to him anyway because they are trying to find and kill him. So not sure what the purpose of that is. And he also kills a couple of goth kids because they sell Dracula dildos in their shop. You know, it doesn't scream to me the awe and fear-inducing unstoppable force that everyone says he is. Oh, and Blade teaches him the word motherfucker, which he likes. Ryan Reynolds is still trying to find a project that will allow him to be Ryan Reynolds, and luckily he finds Deadpool eventually, which is peak Ryan Reynolds, and then suddenly the penny drops and everyone goes, oh, that's your shtick. That's the Ryan Reynolds thing. And now he's now that everyone, world, Ryan Reynolds, meet the world. Now everyone knows what that's all about. He can quite happily go off and do things like Detective Pikachu because we all get it. Back then, whilst funny, I can distinctly remember sitting in the cinema going, where's Blade? I paid my money to see Blade, not this sort of frat boy improv riffing. He's in a completely different movie. And unfortunately, this is supposed to be a Blade movie, not a Ryan Reynolds movie. Parker Posey is in a completely different movie, and bizarrely, in the one scene that they have together, Ryan Reynolds and Parker Posey, they're in the same movie, and that scene really works and it's fun. And I could see to myself, oh, I could see how we could maybe have a Night Stalkers movie after this, which would be fun with the little dogs that have the Blade 2 Reaper mouths and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd go and watch that, but not in this movie, because this is supposed to be a Blade movie, and that's where it all falls down. The vampire plan is half-baked. Blade has nothing to do in his own movie. Wesley Snipes at this point is more or less playing himself being pissed off at the entire situation on screen, which luckily for him kind of feeds into the Blade persona. Anyway, the threat that they've got in Dracula / Drake, the dildo-hating father of all vampires, he's not a good character. He's not a good threat. And the ending is a messy mash. I think I watched the unrated version, and the ending of that is absolutely fucking butchered, because Drake says that he's going to give Blade one parting gift as they're both lying there and Drake's dying, and then nothing happens, because in that scene Blade just wakes up on the autopsy slab and kung fu some people and then drives off into the night, whereas at least in the alternate version Drake shapeshifts. Oh, he can shapeshift. I forgot that. Yeah, no other vampire after him can shapeshift either. He can take on the forms of other humanoids, so he doesn't become a bat or a wolf or a mist or anything cool like that. But sometimes he takes on the appearance of other people, like Whistler, for reasons that I don't think ever give him an advantage in the movie, ever. So that's pointless, except in one version of the end he transforms himself to look like Blade, so that the authorities think they have Blade's body, when in fact, Blade's still alive and out there, and you've got Drake's body instead. So Blade's still out there and alive, but they still have the body of, you know, the father of all vampires, Dracula himself, to study in autopsy. So I don't know, maybe it's a win-win for them. So Blade slips out the back door of his own movie and suffers the ignominy of a Ryan Reynolds voiceover to explain at the end that he's still out there somewhere. But don't worry, folks, because if we get a fourth movie, he's not going to be in it. It's going to be called Night Stalkers, which is an awful fucking title anyway. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, because I'm very glad that Ryan Reynolds managed to leapfrog from disaster to disaster via Green Lantern and finally get to make Deadpool. I'm really sad that this is the end of Wesley Snipes' tenure as Blade. He deserved better. He deserved a rabble-rousing third movie to wave him on his way. I don't mind if the character rides off into the night at the end of the third movie, but at least give him a final hurrah, which he's not afforded. So it's just an unsatisfying watch on all counts.
I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.